Let them come.
Ba weep, grana weep, ninny bong, everyone. For those not in the know, that's the universal greeting. Welcome to another episode of Babblin About. What's Babblin About? It's whatever I want to talk about. Leave me alone. That was mean, I'm sorry. It's a show where I talk about what I want, when I want. And today we're going to be talking about the newly released Transformers Rise of the Beasts. At this point, I think you guys know now I'm a pretty big fan of Transformers, and I actually just did a little event called Transformers-a-thon where I had all-day streams of Transformers War for Cybertron and Transformers Fall of Cybertron. Y'all should check those out. This is totally a plug. But today, I'm here to talk about Transformers Rise of the Beast. No. No. But today, I'm here to talk about Transformers Rise of the Beast, directed by Steven Caple Jr., who is known for The Land and Creed 2. Literally last night, just got out of my screening, and I got a lot to say about it. Now, as it's like universally accepted, the Transformers live-action movies aren't necessarily good movies. I have a personal soft spot for them. They're my comfort food, my junk food, and honestly, I'd be lying if I said growing up, that first live-action movie didn't make me a little interested in making movies. I have an appreciation for them as both a fan of Transformers and as a movie person. But I've decided, since y'all have been very good and well-behaved, I'm going to give y'all a little treat and do my brief opinions on the previous movies as well. It's going to be really brief. I'm going to really just go through it, starting with
Challenge 1.
While I obviously wasn't, alive when the Transformers the movie came out in 1986, I did actually have it growing up on VHS, so I watched it a lot. And it's a fun one. Honestly, even now as an adult, I think it's a really fun, solid movie. It's very clearly a commercial to sell toys, but I think you can kind of say that for all these movies, so I'm not really going to use that as a critique point really at all. But Jesus Christ, you see fucking Autobots and Decepticons get murked in this movie, and it's very clear why. It's a fun watch. I really recommend it if you haven't watched it. And I also have to say my controversial take on it. The touch is great, Dare is better.
Challenge 2.
The first Michael Bay live-action movie from 2007, honestly, of all these movies that get shit on, I think this one deserves it the least. I think it is a solid wow, there's a fucking glare. I think it was a perfect summer blockbuster for that time period in life, and quite frankly, I still think it's a solid movie now. Just being a fun movie, and also just a solid action movie. So, honestly, yeah, it's still pretty great to this day.
Challenge 3.
Transformers Revenge of the Fallen came out in 2009, and as I've gotten older, I definitely have gotten older and realized, yeah, what are we doing here? But on the other side of the spectrum, it's got some great action sequence. I mean, you can't fault that forest fight, man. See, Revenge of the Fallen I think is overhated, but I still can't say it's a fantastic movie.
Challenge 4.
Transformers Dark of the Moon came out in 2011, and this is one, again, another one I'm really sorry I think is fun. I don't know. It's definitely a flawed movie. I'm not going to say any of these movies aren't flawed movies. Shockwave barely being a character is annoying, but I feel like at this point we kind of had to just accept that. Also, Optimus Prime is kind of a little more psychotic now, and a little more bloodthirsty, and that final kill against Megatron and Sentinel, yeah, I guess as I gotten older I realized that wasn't the best look for him. Especially because the novelization ending really kind of has a sweet ending where Megatron and Optimus kind of form a truce and stop the war then and there, and I kind of wish that was the true ending of the movie. But Dark of the Moon is definitely an acquired taste. You might not like it, but hey, if you like the Bay action, you might like it.
Challenge 5.
This is probably the one I'm going to have probably the most radical thing to say about it, but I kind of don't hate Age of Extinction. Once again, beating a dead horse, I understand the criticisms, please don't take it the wrong way. But I really felt like there were at least some new things in this movie they were trying, and the biggest issue I have with all these movies is just that because of the big type of blockbuster movie it is, they'll have a cool idea here. And for example, for me, a really cool idea in this movie is Optimus Prime struggling with the fact that, yeah, he helped save the world, and now one by one his people are being slaughtered. That's an interesting character motive for him. But the thing is, it's a big summer blockbuster popcorn movie, so it's not going to explore that. And also, the Dinobots barely being anything was kind of lame. Also, Galvatron being a bunch of cubes was kind of lame. But I still think it's kind of fun from start to finish. It's pretty long, and maybe a little too long. However, the Romeo and Juliet shit...
Challenge 6.
Oh, and now we've reached the actual worst one. This movie is not good. This movie is pretty damn bad. From both a storytelling level and a technical level, this movie is not great. Do I have some things about it I liked? Yeah, sure. I have it for all of these movies. Once again, there's cool concepts in it that just aren't explored because it's a big budget summer blockbuster popcorn movie. Out of all the ones, I have to be honest here and say I do agree with what people say the most about this one. It is just not a great movie.
Final challenge.
And now, on the opposite side of that spectrum, this to me is the best Transformers movie. I really genuinely feel that Bumblebee is the perfect tone of what I like for Transformers. I think the action is really good when it needs to be, but I think there's also heart as well, and to me, I think that is one of the most important cores of Transformers as a franchise, and what makes it so fun, you know? There's great action too, there's great characters, I really love Bumblebee. If you haven't watched it, I recommend it. Alright, now we can move into Transformers Rise of the Beast, and my overall initial reaction is that it was good. The action was really solid and really well directed. One of the biggest criticisms is that the Bay movies, the action would be a mess. You can't tell what's going on. Personally, I never had that issue, but hey, I understand it. You can clearly see the action. You can clearly see the punches. It's really well done, and they do a lot of cool things with alt modes and stuff like that. I think the action was great, and to me, that is one of the biggest things about these movies, is the action. You know, they're big budget action movies. That kind of has to be good. Talking about the Cybertronians too, great about this movie is that they all feel like characters. They don't feel like it's just Optimus and Bumblebee and then everyone else are just external set pieces. They feel like actual characters, and I really appreciate that. That, I think, is something that's always been missing from the movies, and I love to see that there. We did have that with Bumblebee, but the advantage to that movie was that we were focused on one single Autobot. We were focused on Bumblebee. In Rise of the Beast, while there definitely is a bit of a balancing act with it, it does a pretty good job giving everyone a decent moment and a time to shine. Not only the heroes, the villains feel more fleshed out too. So the villains in this movie are the Terracons, basically the heralds of Unicron for this universe, led by Scourge, who also was a herald of Unicron in the original movie. And there was also Battletrap and Nightbird, and I really liked them. I thought they were really solid villain characters from start to finish. Scourge definitely has the most screen time of them, but at least Nightbird and Battletrap have their moments. Battletrap especially, I really liked seeing him in combat. What he was able to do with his wrecking ball that he has was awesome. I really thought that was sick. And not only that, the humans feel pretty natural too. The main character, Noah Diaz, played by Anthony Ramos, I really enjoyed his performance actually. I liked his character in the sense that he was very he is at heart a good person, but he's also very morally gray with what he's trying to do, especially because given the situation he's put in. His brother is sick, he needs medicine, he doesn't have a job. He's definitely different than Sam Witwicky or Katie Yeager in the previous movies, and I appreciate that. You know, it wasn't just trying to do those characters again, and I hope we get to see more of him. Then we also had Elena, played by Dominique Fishback, who was our other protagonist, and she was really fun too. I really enjoyed her on screen, and her character was very important to the plot too. You know, she was the one who was able to tell, hey, we've seen these markings on the key in Peru, that's where we need to go now, and we'll get to the key in a second. We're not at the plot yet. And of course, the wonderful Peter Cullen as Optimus Prime. It's always a joy to hear him in that role still. I'm still happy to see he's still doing that role. I really, from the heart, mean that. Ron Perlman was actually Optimus Primal, which I actually thought was great casting. I thought he did a pretty good job in that role. Pete Davidson played Mirage, and I really enjoy Mirage from start to finish in this movie. You know, I was surprised how much I actually ended up liking this character. And I mean, he was definitely written to be the fan favorite of this movie. A ton of other Transformers in the movie, such as RC, Airazor, Cheetor, Rhinox, Wheeljack. And then to me, another surprise standout was Colman Domingo as Unicron was really solid. Now, to explain the story in its most basic form, Unicron is a multi-dimensional being that eats planets. However, he's locked in his own dimension, and there is a key that acts as a space bridge that would allow him to travel all across the universe and eat planets as much as he pleases. And I don't think I need to tell you anything about that, but Unicron eating planets is bad. So our heroes have to find this key before the Terracons do. However, this opens an interesting moral dilemma. Optimus wants this key because he can get all of his Autobots back home to continue to fight the war and reunite. However, the other side of the spectrum here is Noah just wants to straight up destroy the key because, yeah, this threat, Unicron, hey, might eat your entire planet. I think it's actually a really reasonable conflict in this movie that I think the movie does, for the most part, pretty well. And the Maximals come into play because they were the guardians of this key on Earth. And eventually all of the plot lines intertwine into one big final showdown battle with explosions and robots and all the good stuff. I want to give that brief explanation of the story because I think the overall theme of this movie, and you know I might be reading into it because at the end of the day it is a big summer popcorn blockbuster movie, but hey, I like the silly robots, so I'm going to talk about it anyway. If I had to sum up this movie in one word, it would be desperation. Everyone has a goal, and they're all really desperate to get to it. You know, Optimus feels guilty for stranding the Autobots on Earth, and he just wants to get them home. Noah has a moral crisis of not only trying to find a job, he has a sick brother he needs to figure out how to get medicine for, and now he has to deal with potentially his planet being eaten. Those factors alone really makes me understand why Noah thinks the way he does in this movie. We also have Primal, who had to emergency evacuate from his planet with the key when Scourge and the Terracons were taking it over and Unicron slowly devoured his planet. He's desperate to protect that key and prevent Unicron from ever escaping his dimension. You can see that a lot in him too. And the other character I feel like who fits this bill, while not anywhere near as nuanced as his characters, is Scourge. is because Scourge is desperate to find this key, because if he doesn't find that key, Unicron is gonna find him. So it makes me understand why Scourge is such a bloodthirsty hunter in this movie. And I think this reinvention of this character is really cool, and honestly, I would like to see that be the standard of his character. Now that I've gone over all this, what do I really think about it as an overall piece? From my gut feeling, I did enjoy it. I had a great time watching the movie, I think it was pretty strong Transformers content, and it does a good job in making the Transformers actual characters, because despite what people think, the Transformers are living, breathing creatures that are actual characters. Tonally, this movie almost feels like a hybrid between Bumblebee and the Bay movies, whereas it definitely has more of the heart that something like Bumblebee does. However, it also feels like a Bayverse movie where it leans into the heavy action and simplistic but kind of nonsensical story at the time. It's a weird mix, but I think it worked. I think it worked for the most part. I think that just needs a little more fine-tuning to make it a little more special. And while there were definitely some jokes in the movie that made me laugh, I truthfully can't say a lot of it landed for me, but a good amount of it did, where it didn't bother me too much, I definitely stuff with Mirage. I liked him. He was really fun. The filmmaking, however, I'm a little torn on, because say what you want about those Michael Bay movies, they have a really distinct style to them, You can tell it's a Michael Bay movie, not just because of the explosions, but you can tell by just the way it's directed and the way it looks. The one kind of critique I have about Rise of the Beast is that, I gotta be honest here, it's a little bland. Is it bland enough that it takes too much away from the movie? No. I think it's missing a little character and a little identity in its filmmaking and the way it's shot. This is something I feel like a lot of people might not take note of, but just someone like me who is a movie person, it's a little important to me to have that visual identity. However, credit where credit is due, I thought the CG was pretty darn good. Honestly, I think it was maybe some of the strongest CG this franchise has ever had. I think I've said all I can say without going into spoilers, so on that note, I'm actually not going to go too crazy into spoilers for this, because really, if you're interested in it, I want you to go watch it, because it is a fun watch if you like Transformers. Time code is going to be somewhere down here if you want to skip this spoiler section. One of the big things I want to talk about in spoilers, and I guess I didn't really need to say this for spoilers, man, I gotta level with everyone. I don't like New Wheeljack. I know it's not a hot take, but it's only just because you had it. You had it, and then made it that. He's not really much of a character in the movie either, and I like Wheeljack, so that's kind of a bit of a point of contention for me, but it's not enough for me to be like, oh, the movie's terrible now. Oh. I think the movie does a cool way of adapting Beast Wars into this universe with the regular Transformers characters, because Beast Wars is a really kind of self-contained story, and it's a really good story too. The CG is a little glaring to look at now, I get it. It's a solid show, it really is. And I think they did a cool job way of adapting that. I'm a little confused in the lore implications of it, so Primal took his name inspired by Optimus Prime because he heard of the legends of Optimus Prime, but how much of a gap is there in between? I'm a dork, I'm overthinking this. I was a little confused on that. I think it's a sincere gesture in the movie, and it definitely works. In the moment, I'm like, wait, but how does that work? Because for context, in the original show, Beast Wars takes place after Geno transforms, so it's a little weird. It's not a huge criticism, it's just something me overthinking. I have the most important criticism now to say of all time. There's a scene right at the beginning of the movie where Noah's little brother comes out, and he has a Game Boy, and he's like, oh, I just can't beat Bowser. The movie takes place in 1994, and he very clearly has an original Game Boy. Not to be the video game dork in the room, but there wasn't a Game Boy game with Bowser in it, you silly. I just want everyone to know I'm just throwing this in for a laugh. I'm not actually upset about that in the slightest. I would never be that kind of person. I thought it was an interesting decision to have Bumblebee basically dead throughout a majority of the movie. I see it as a positive and negative. I see it as it gives these new characters moments to shine, and Optimus a moment to shine, since Bumblebee had his own movie previously, but at the same time Bumblebee had his own movie previously, and we kind of really like that character. However, it all pays off, because don't worry, Bumblebee's okay. While it was shown in the trailer, his airdrop sequence and return into the fight is pretty sick. And I will mention that too now is, I hate to say it, they once again showed too much in the trailers. That was one of my biggest takeaways. It's a good thing I stopped after that second trailer, because man, there were TV spot after TV spot after that. I'm glad I didn't even bother with any of those. Mirage also was the surprise moment where Mirage actually dies in the movie. He dies, but then almost sacrifices himself to give Noah an exosuit, similar to something like Spike Witwicky in the 80s movie, and then also the character Kicker from Transformers Energon has kind of like a tokusatsu-inspired, like, exosuit like that. And it was cool. It was cool to see Noah fight alongside Optimus in that final fight. I really thought it was the final showdown between Scourge, Optimus, and Noah I thought was sick. I thought that was really cool. Now I have to get into the big spoiler here. The biggest spoiler of the movie. And again, if you want to skip this, and honestly, if you plan on seeing it, I recommend skipping it because it was a shock to me when it happened. So the movie ends. Noah is still trying to find a job. And he's on an interview, and this guy is interviewing him. You know, he just seems like a generic kind of idiot, like higher up business guy at first. But then the conversation shifts. And, you know, we've seen that happen. It's like, oh, he secretly knows. He knows the Autobots. However, the conversation shifts into more of like, we want our team to work with your team. Think about it. He gives him a card. The wall in his like office like opens up. You see like ships being worked on in the background. And then the movie ends. Noah looks at the card. The card says G.I. Joe on it. Audibly. And it wasn't necessarily positive for me, I'll be honest. I did go, what the fuck? Like, I don't know how I feel about this. Because I always kind of liked these Transformers movies as self-contained things. And if they want to, Hasbro's always been trying to be like, we want to make our own movie universe. And I just feel like, is it a hot take at this point to say I think cinematic universes have run its course and they're worn out at this point? Is that a hot take to say at all anymore? I don't know how I feel about this. It's not like Transformers hasn't crossed over to a G.I. Joe before, but like, I'll be honest, I don't have much of an affinity with G.I. Joe as an IP. I think it's cool, but I don't have anything with it like I do Transformers. And I'm scared that's going to take away from Transformers as a whole, rather than add to it. I don't know, it's still early. Movie could never even come out for all I know. It was definitely a surprise. I just don't know how I feel about it. So to sum it up, I liked the movie. I thought it was a pretty solid Transformers movie. It was good representations of these characters. It just overall still has some quirks that are holding it down. But it's always going to have that uphill fight, and I don't really care at this point. These are my comfort movies. They make me happy, and as someone who has struggled to just sit down and watch damn movies for fun, because my brain just overthinks it, and my brain definitely did with this movie too, I still can watch a stupid Transformers movie and have a good time. Now, what would I rate it though? I've been trying my best to not overrate things and underrate things, so I think I would give Transformers Rise of the Beast a strong 7. I think that is a fair place to put it. It's a pretty stacked summer, so like if you can't make it out to see it, I get it, but I recommend seeing it. You know, I saw it on like a big RPX screen and that was fun. I'm just glad it was a pretty solid piece of Transformers media, because as someone who really has been missing some Transformers media in his life, it really did spark my love for this series again, and that's what these movies always do best for me. They spark my love for this series and help me appreciate the things I really like about it, go back and see some of my favorites, and see some new stuff that I haven't really experienced yet. Gonna wrap it here, guys. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Babblin' About, you know. Please make sure to like, comment, subscribe, do all the fun YouTube stuff. I would really appreciate it. I hope you liked this episode of Babblin' About, and until next time, see you later.